Today we're going to look at evolution and the history of life on Earth. We're going to trace the evolutionary journey from the earliest single-celled organisms all the way up to modern humans, step by step. I'm going to use this evolution and classification of life chart, and this whole thing is available as a poster. You can get that on my website, usefulcharts.com. Now, as the title suggests, this is both an evolution chart because it shows the various evolutionary connections between living things, but it's also a classification chart because it shows how living things are classified into various kingdoms, orders, classes, species, and so forth. I also want to point out that this video assumes that you accept the theory of evolution. If you do not, this is not a place to argue about that. I'm not going to respond to comments that want to argue about whether or not evolution is true. Those kind of conversations can take place elsewhere. Also, if you're looking for evidence for evolution, this video does not cover that. It just covers the evolutionary story from single cells onwards. So let's start here at the bottom. The most simple type of life, a single cell, came to exist about 4 billion years ago. And we don't know exactly why or how. That's called abiogenesis, and there's theories about that. But the theory of evolution doesn't actually encompass that. It just starts with that single cell and explains what happened from there. Now you'll notice that I put viruses off to the side here because viruses are technically not living because they require a host in order to replicate. So from the beginning, life went in 3 different directions, and these are called domains. A domain is one level up from a kingdom in terms of classification. And we've got the well-known bacteria domain. And if you've ever had a strep throat, that's caused by bacteria, which is a little bit different from viruses, which cause the common cold or the flu. And there's a domain over here called archaea, which used to be lumped together with bacteria, but current research suggests that they actually belong in their own category. But what we're mostly concerned with here is the eukaryote domain, and the word eukaryote means true cell. And what happened was a process called endosymbiosis, where various type of bacteria combined together. One cell went into another cell to create a more complex cell with various different parts. And this is called a eukaryote cell. Now, eukaryotes evolved about 2 billion years ago. This MA means million years ago, so 2,000 million years ago, which is 2 billion years ago. And then from there, life proceeds in several different directions. We eventually get algae, which becomes plants. And then we get various type of molds that evolve into fungus, like mushroom and yeast. And then we get cells that eventually evolve into animal cells. And that's the line that we're going to look at. But first I should mention that all these kind of like really simple early evolved life forms are called protists. And sometimes they're lumped together into one big kingdom called the protist kingdom. But more technically, they actually should be divided into a bunch of mini kingdoms that exist in their own right. So let's look at the animal kingdom. One of the simplest types of animals is the sea sponge. Now, some people are surprised to learn that a sea sponge is an animal, but the cells of a sea sponge are actually more closer to animal cells than to plant cells. So they are classified as animals. Another early type of animal, a very simple animal, is the jellyfish. By this point, some cells that allowed for movement evolved, different types of tissues that had different jobs. So as we know, jellyfish can swim around the water, unlike a sea sponge, which stays in one spot. But the most important thing from our perspective that happened at this early stage is the evolution of bilateria. And if we look over here at this flatworm, you'll notice that one side mirrors the other side. And all animals from this point forward have this bilateral symmetry, including humans. That's why we have 2 arms, 2 legs, so forth. So this is all happening about 550 million years ago. It was the time of the Cambrian explosion, when we suddenly get this explosion of different life forms. So here life proceeds in 2 directions. We get protostomes, which include mollusks like snails and octopuses and squid, and then the arthropods, which include spiders and insects and various kind of bugs. And we also get worms. Whereas the deuterostomes head in a different direction and eventually evolve into phylum Chordata, from which the vertebrates come. So everything in this purple section here, these are all invertebrates, which mean they don't have a vertebrate, which is a backbone. Here, a backbone evolves, and we start to get animals that have a bony spine. So eventually as well, we get a jaw that evolves, and then more bones along the structure of the body. Sharks kind of go off here before that because they don't have bones like fish. They have cartilage instead. And then you get ray-finned fish versus lobe-finned fish. And ray-finned fish are what we tend to think of as fish, all different types like tuna or salmon and so forth. So there's a great variety of different fish here. But it's from the lobe-finned fish that the land creatures come. And let's take a look at an extinct creature here, the fossil of which was discovered not too many years ago. Tiktaalik. You can see here that this fish has various kind of little lobes that point downwards, and eventually these were evolved into what's called tetrapods, which means 4 limbs. And these tetrapods were able to kind of go onto land for little bits at a time. And from there we get a type of creature known as amphibians, like frogs and salamanders, who live partially in the water and partially on land. But we also get amniotes, who developed an amniotic sac, which allowed them to lay their eggs on land instead of the water. And then from there, life goes in 2 very different directions. We get synapsids and sauropsids. From sauropsids come the reptiles, modern reptiles like crocodiles and lizards, but also all these different types of dinosaurs. It's from a certain type of dinosaur related to the T-Rex that we eventually get birds. And then birds evolve in all kinds of different directions from there. But since we're trying to trace the route toward humans, we're going to go back to this junction here and take a turn toward the synapsids, because it's the synapsids which eventually evolve into mammals. And mammals, of course, are warm-blooded creatures, often with hair, and they have mammary glands and so forth. There's a very early type of mammal that we can still see today called the platypus, which is very strange looking to us because it's very different from all other mammals. All other mammals are known as theria, which means beasts. And from there, things go in 2 different directions. We get the placentals, mammals that have a placenta and therefore have live births, versus marsupials, who have the most famous one being the kangaroo, where the baby goes in a little pouch in the front. So humans are placental, so let's continue the line here. We get a branch of mammals that evolves into elephants and armadillos. And then here we have Boreoeutheria, from which the primates come. But there's also another line here, which we won't go into great detail, but that leads to Laurasia, from which we get carnivores like cats and dogs and lions, but also the ungulates, which include horses and the various farm animals like pigs and cows. And interestingly, the cetaceans, which are whales and dolphins, are closely related to these mammals. But we're going to take a turn here to the supraprimates, which include also rabbits and little creatures like mice and rats. From there, we get the primates, and primates, of course, monkeys, apes, and so forth. So some of the earliest primates to evolve include lemurs and tarsiers. And then we get simians, which means monkeys. We get the New World monkeys and the Old World monkeys. And then we get apes. The earliest or most simple type of ape would be the gibbons. And then finally we get the great apes. And there are 4 main types of great apes. There are the orangutans, gorilla, the 2 types of chimpanzees, and then the humans. And so humans belong to this great ape family. Now, most people know that the chimps are the closest relative to humans that exist today. And the last ancestor of both these species would, or types of animals, would have existed about 7 million years ago. But from there, we get all kinds of different types of early humans. First, different types of Australopithecus, and then with the genus Homo, technically that's Homo is what we consider to be human after here. We get Homo habilis, one of the earliest tool users. Then we get Homo ergaster in Africa, from which Homo erectus came in Asia. We eventually get Homo heidelbergensis, and from this species comes the Neanderthals and also Homo sapiens. And for Homo sapiens, you see pictured here a member of the South African San tribe, who is genetically probably closest to what the original Homo sapiens would have looked like. So there we have it. There is the evolutionary journey, all the way from single cells to humans. And I hope you've enjoyed this video. And as I mentioned, you can get the poster over at usefulcharts.com. Thanks for watching.